MIBR fans, come here. We have the second episode of our now famous podcast series, Harry. We got a lot of good feedback after the first episode. And this time we've brought on Roque from Dust2 BR, the local Brazilian expert, and he's going to be here as we potentially break down, potentially shit on MIBR, and he can be the Brazilian defender as Harry rips him apart with stats.
So I don't think it's a fair fight because MIBR right now not the best. So I will let Harry do his thing, and I will try to give some background to some of the changes and this kind of stuff. But it's an honor to be here with two friends of mine, and let's speak about MIBR, not MIBR.
That's not going to catch on. I can tell you right now.
No
one's saying that. This is worse than like Bruno Fernandes instead of Fernandes. It's even worse. We're not doing that.
No. Now you're doing the Portuguese accent. We already talked a lot about it. It's the Brazilian way, not Bruno.
Yes.
Okay, Harry. How are we getting
full
into
Gringo
this?
episode instead. Okay.
How are we getting into this? Because I see you've highlighted the new IGL change in your first slide. Much more professional this time around, not just a random PowerPoint.
So here we go. I mean, we had a call from the big bosses last week. They said the production quality wasn't good enough. They said I have to actually put time in to graphics. And this is what's happened. It's all me, of course. All me. Everyone knows it's all me. But look, we've got a title slide here. Look at the lovely little logo. But yeah, let's get into it. First things first. I think this is great, actually. But this is Exit handing the reins to Drop. And for the audio listeners, it's their faces, photoshopped on. And I think it's kind of great. So it's going to be the first topic. Unlike last week, I think we're going to discuss it as we go along instead of me just monologuing, like almost monologuing worse than the only Pixel interview I did yesterday where I asked one question and he did a 6-minute answer. I don't want to be that guy again. So let's talk about Drop being the IGL, because I think Roque has probably more to know about it. But so Exit obviously isn't the traditional type of player to be an IGL. He is kind of the passive, baity lurker, right? So it does make sense for Drop with his experience and a more selfless type of player maybe to be IGL. But I wondered, why did this change happen? Okay.
I mean, I think besides the roles, it was also different for basically every Brazilian to see Drop as the IGL, because we always saw him as like the most emotional guy on the Fury team. So you would see Drop like rage sometimes. He's even crying in some moments. So a lot of people got surprised by the choice of Drop because the comments were, oh, he's not good enough for this role. He doesn't have the emotion. He doesn't have the right mentality to be an IGL. And when they did the change, like changing from so long with from Exit to Drop, it was a big surprise, most because of this style of Drop to be a more emotional guy, a more passionate guy. Everyone likes to paint the Brazilians. Drop, it's exactly that. He's a guy who's very vocal. So even in the Fury days, he used to speak a lot during the games. You can see this in vlogs and sometimes some content that Fury put out. He was always speaking, always even being younger than all the other players. He was very vocal. So I think that has to take a big part on this change, Also, he's a very experienced guy, I guess. Even he's younger than some of the players. He spent a lot of time in tier 1 competitions in the years with Fury. So it's a change of pace. Of course, you said about roles, Exit is it in Brazilian Portuguese is a guy who, of course, has the more bait in holes. Let's say that way. So he was always playing alone, always in the other side of the map. So I don't think there's an easy answer on why Drop had this chance to be the IGL. I think it's more something about MIBR just changing things and trying different things than anything very specific. At least this is what I heard in the background of the story. But I guess it's more of a change of not even pace, but change of things for MIBR. Just trying to do things different because they don't have achieved much such success in the last years.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because it's been so difficult, right? But sorry, I was just going to say quickly, but a lot of the AWPers in Brazil are kind of like AWPers as well. Like it's kind of hard to recruit a new IGL. Like Big Azir is not really like a traditional selfless IGL. Like it's almost like because Fallen, it's been around for so long. Like obviously the other Brazilian steel, like it was quite hard for them to recruit. So you can kind of see where they went in house. But yeah, sorry, no, you go.
Yeah, I mean, even if you look at to the other teams like Legacy, they also turned Nekis into IGL. So it's we just don't have enough EGLs around. So
I was going to say one of the things that prompted this episode is both this change, but also the fact that they just brought Lucaozy in, and there have been some role changes. There's been some adjustments made to this team ahead of the Americas RMR. It was a move that was a long time in the making. They tried to get him a couple of times, and now they've actually finally nailed him down. But there's still not too much tape on them as to how they play with this addition. So maybe, Harry, you can touch on the roles since Roque was just talking about them and just how it's kind of unfolded so far.
Yeah, I think I'm going to be very interested to see what Roque has to say about like the whole journey of this Lucaozy thing, because it's been, I remember the first Dust2 BR report about this was like literally like years ago in my head, and I don't even know if it was, but so it seems like almost, well, we wanted him for this long, we'll just sign him anyway, basically. But yes, there's problems with the roles. Everyone's favorite part of you know, the brand, the role cell brand is back, but on CT side it's kind of fine. But the one big issue we're going to want to highlight today is really Lucaozy coming in and then Insani, right? So Insani's from their academy, but he's also amazing. He's amazing at what he does. He is a very aggressive rifler. He has all these rotate roles, like I've used Mirage here, he's in connector. And Lucaozy, he can play short because there's 2-star roles on most maps, right? But when he was in Fluxo, he was also this super aggressive guy. And there's only so much space at the start of the round. So when you have 2 stars, it is a bit different. It's kind of, they're very different types of players, but it's kind of like the Blameth and Stound thing in Astralis, where they both want to play the same roles. They both want to be the playmakers, and they both want CT rounds to be called around them, normally. Okay. Drop and exit can be anchors, that's fine. Drop's actually a better fragging anchor than a lot of these teams. You don't have a deadweight CT anchor. So CT side, kind of fine, but Lucaozy is probably not getting as much space as he's used to because Insani is this wonder kid. There you go. T side.
What are the percentages mean?
Yes, percentages, sorry, audio. Percentages is basically the scale I use for like how much freedom a player gets. So 0% is full anchor. So like Beyond Mirage is 0. And then you get a score of each spot. So exits at 17%. Safe AWPers are always at 100%. And then 100% would mean you're in the best spot on every map, basically. By rating, by opening attempts, a few other things. You kind of generate a score to show how much freedom a player gets, right? So Insani's at 90% in this MIBR team. So he's the main star, basically, is how it works. Lucaozy 73%, Drop 19%. So it's quite a split team. A lot of teams you'll see like 15%, 50%, 60%, 90% in terms of the split, but this is very much we've got 2 anchors and we've got 2 rotators, which makes sense based on the players. So CT side, I'm not sure if Lucaozy's always having fun, but on paper it makes sense. T side, very similar, except Lucaozy has to become this kind of aggressive lurker, basically. That's kind of his job now. So he does get some map control roles. So the percentages here are a bit different. So 0% is lurking. So 0% is you're a full lurker every map. But it's quite hard to get near 0% because most maps, you know, you've got one lurk spot, one kind of weird spot. It's not a 0 to 10 thing. It's more mixed up. So that's why that's the case here. AWPing again, 100%. Insani, 74%. So he's basically their main map control guy. But Drop, he still does a little bit of lurking because he's used to being that lurker, right? Like in Fury, he was the kind of the support player lurker. Caterot is doing the star lurking. Drop's doing the kind of the boring lurking and then entering mid round. That's kind of his old job. And he gets to do the same sort of, but he is, yeah, he's becoming more of this IGL. So he has more space-taking roles than Lucaozy on average. Lucaozy is now an aggressive lurker, and exit, like we said, passive lurker. He's going to be baiting. That's fine. So those are the roles. And the main issue I have is, okay, so a lot of people say it's fine. You need 2 aggressive players, right? You want people to take initiative in the mid-round. And I get that. That's fine. But when you have Insani, okay, so he's the best prospect come out of Brazil for a while, in my opinion at least. I think he's probably, like, we'll get to him more later. I think he's a top 3 Brazilian player right now. I think that's pretty easy. I think he'd be on a different team if buyout systems were different. I think if you had a Brazilian super team, he would be the first name on my team sheet.
This is a whole other podcast. Don't start with Brazilian super teams.
We're not going to do this. We're not going to do Brazilian buyout podcast. But what I'm saying is, why would you sign a player who, at least on Fluxo, and Lucaozy is playing very differently on MIBR, but why would you sign a player that does the same thing as Insani, but a bit worse? And I think that's where we come to. I think it'd be good now to get some background on the Lucaozy signing, because I think MIBR first wanted Lucaozy before they knew Insani was this good, basically. So they were trying to solve a problem that in the time they've spent actually signing Lucaozy, they've already solved by just promoting Insani. So it's been like, so yeah, tell us a bit about this process, because I don't understand why, like, it's almost like a sunk cost fallacy. It's almost like they spent so much time trying to get Lucaozy that when they could get him, they just got him anyway. When I think there's other Brazilian players that would fit into this team a bit better than Lucaozy does right now. So yeah, what's the deal with all this?
Yeah, basically, when MIBR wanted Lucaozy for the first time, Insani was not even a thing. You know, like, he was in MIBR Academy since 2021, I guess, because MIBR did a project, so you could basically sign up for do some testing, and then he got approved in the academy team. But the first time they actually tried to get Lucaozy, it was at the end of 2022, when he was like in Fluxo for some months. I don't know if you guys remember, but Lucaozy had like insanely huge buyout of 325k euros, leaving Sharks for Fluxo. And Fluxo had just started investing in CS, so they trying to get some players, like trying to do some I don't know the perfect word to use, but trying to do some noise in the scene. So they had a very talent lineup with VSM, with Lucaozy, with players with a lot of media, besides being good CS players. So MIBR tried for the first time in 2022. Then they tried again in 2023. So every time they thought about a change, or they thought they needed a change, they go for Lucaozy, and he's like a vital part of Fluxo team. So of course it wasn't easy to get him. They didn't get him in 2022. They didn't get him in 2023. They even joked about when they tried to get Lucaozy and he rejected. When they presented the new team, I don't remember who were the players, but they had one of MIBR content creators saying, "Oh, how much he wants for salary?" All this, and Lucaozy got mad and say that he would wait for a new MIBR email in the end of the year. The email actually came, but in months, some months after. We can speak about specifically this time, and they tried to get Lucaozy first before the closed qualifier. So they were in the market, like asking some teams, and specifically asking Fluxo to get Lucaozy. He had a contract with Fluxo until December, so he's in the end of his contract. And Fluxo, of course, they didn't want it to change a player. They didn't want to lose their their main star, but they are also in a very new lineup with Art, with Tacitos, with a lot of young players. So it kind of makes sense to change and to get rid of one of the biggest salaries in Brazil. So Lucaozy in Fluxo had a salary that's bigger than a lot of players. So he was a player who costed a lot of money to Fluxo since the beginning. Of course, they got the major, they got the Paris major, so they had like $4 million with their seekers. It was worth it to spend a lot of money on Lucaozy, but if you have the opportunity to like just don't pay his salary for 6 months and get some money. I don't know how much money they made selling Lucaozy to MIBR, but it was a good opportunity for everyone. Lucaozy had already told Fluxo he didn't want to renew his contract, so he would leave for free in the end of the year. And Fluxo made a decision. At the first, it was going to happen before the qualifiers, but then Lucaozy said, no, I wanna try one more time. I want to play the qualifiers with Fluxo. And after the qualifiers, even with MIBR, of course, being invited directly to the event, they thought it was a good timing for bringing in Lucaozy. Of course, the timing kind of turned out to be bad because of their Pro League run, and the best run on MIBR for I don't know how long, but at least a couple of years. We didn't see MIBR doing so great in a tournament. From what I understood of the situation, the players didn't knew that Lucaozy was coming. So I'm not sure if it was something like that people told me and it wasn't a fact. So maybe players knew, but as far as I know, players didn't knew that Lucaozy was coming. But at least from August, like end of August and start of September, they knew that there was some interest in MIBR on bringing Lucaozy. So I don't know, like if it was a decision with Drop, for example. I know he's pretty good friends with Ezich because the times they play together in Sharks. So I'm not sure why MIBR wanted to bring Lucaozy even before they got invited and even before they were kind of doing good with Behenizan. So not sure why it happens, but I can tell you that this move have been in talks for at least 2 years, because every time MIBR considered doing a change, Lucaozy was the first name. He of course got offers from other teams. He was always like the name being speaking about in the Brazilian scene. So I think it also plays a part, maybe you say that why having two aggressive players, but maybe they felt that they need some one more star player so he can like try to shake things around like they did with dropping the IGL. So I guess changes in MIBR nowadays also means that they are just not changing just for the sake of change, but trying to get some external things, like doing a change that will change the moral of the team. They changes the staff, like they use it to have Beach as a coach and Nak as an analyst. They change it to now Nak is the coach and Beach is the analyst. So MIBR just does a lot of changes. From the outside perspective, I think these changes, besides what they do to the game itself, to the players itself, it's also trying to change the environment of the team.
Let me ask you a question here. Okay. How do you rate the change? Give me a rate 8 out of 8, mate. Is it a good move for MIBR, especially right before the RMR?
I think it was a good move. If I have to rate to 8, I would say 7, because also Berrien was not playing as good as he was in the 2023 or 2022, I don't remember, when he just moved up from academy to the main team. He was not being that player, like the same player that he was for a brief period of time of his career. So I'm not as a specialist as Harry in roles and numbers and things like that, but it makes sense for like a eye test point of view. Getting Lucaozy, it's an upgrade over Behenizan. So I guess it's a matter of time and some changes. Of course, if Insani will have less space, I think it's a worth trade. If we compare individual level of Lucão and Berrien.
Harry, why don't you walk us through some of those changes and how this works out with Insani then?
Yeah, so this is the next few ones are going to be the stats since Lucaozy joined, and I have to do the thing. I have to warn about sample size. Okay, so he's not actually played for ages, so he joined at the end of September. Okay.
First of all, I just want to congratulate you on labeling your axes this time. I saw that was a contentious point last time.
Yeah, I mean, I spent so much time on last week's graphics. You should have. Actually crazy. But yeah, this time we've got titles as well. So it's, this one is, so we're using the HLTV attributes, which we launched a few months ago for some of these charts, which I think are great because I was involved, obviously. So this one's firepower, which is basically kills, damage, multi-kills. It's kind of rating without the noise. It's rating without the, the survival gain in a way. We don't care about baiting here. And then utility is the flash assists, grenade damages, things like that. So what we're trying to do is see which players in this team do which thing, okay? And Insani is just amazing. He's got like more than 70 firepower, which is, they're playing good teams in this run. They're also losing a lot in this run. Like this sample size is them playing a lot of games that are losing. Apart from in Challenger League, which we can talk about a bit. So they did qualify for Pro League next year. That's their big result. That's kind of the only tournament that's mattered a lot since Lucaozy joined, and they did get second place, which had the Pro League slot. But we do have this kind of, and this is going to be a theme. So we've got Insani being very good. And then Lucaozy's kind of not doing loads at the moment. He's actually fragging quite badly in this small sample size. So he's not getting used to his new roles yet. He's not fragging well enough, considering I think it was a 1.30 rating he had in Fluxo basically this year. And okay, it's regional. It's against regional teams, fine. But he's gone from that to this, and this is a big drop off. And then you have exit drop.
Also, it's the only type of teams he basically always play his whole career, because in Fluxo they didn't had a lot of chances to play international, so he always played against this competition. So that these numbers means a lot.
And now it's actually the same thing. So it's all been pretty regional, other than like 3 maps at Katowice where they lost all of them. So maybe this is a bit harsh to present it like this, but what we're trying to say is, Lucaozy's dropped off, and with the RMR happening like tomorrow, literally, it's not been smooth sailing. But yeah, let's breeze through it quickly. The other thing is obviously just how good Insani is. So here's some of the, like, not the best stats in the world, but some basic stats to just look at. So he's got on LAN top 50 this year out of people with like a good sample size. Insani's basically like the best. Okay, so damage, he's better than Keserato. Kills, more than Keserato. Impact is only Biggie Zero above him. It's like headshot kill per round, which isn't an amazing stat, but it's talking about he's got sharp aim. So this guy's got sharp aim and he does a lot of output. So Insani is still not the problem. He's never going to be the problem. But, and this is the kind of aggression chart, I guess. And you can see Insani's bottom right of the chart, which is the opening side. So these are still our attributes. Insani's the opener. And then they've got safe, exit, and drop. All of them basically score better in the clutching score than the opening score. So they're your late round players. Lucaozy's kind of in the middle. So he's basically, I think he drops off 8% or something in opening attempts on the move. So he has become much more passive compared to what he was doing on Fluxo. And I don't think that's a huge problem, but it's something to bear in mind, where he isn't really as involved in the O-round as before. He's kind of average in both. Like he's not in clutches, he's not in opening, he's kind of the mid-round player, and he's going to have to adapt to that, basically. Last chart for now, it's kind of the same thing, but instead of it being early round, late round, this is who goes first into bomb sites. So it's who is getting the trade frags and who is doing the trading, is basically. So if you're below the trend line, that means you're entering more than you're going in second or third, basically. If you're being traded more, then you're the entry. So you can kind of see Lucaozy. So Insani, we think of him as super aggressive, but he trades as much as he entries. It's kind of like the donk thing. Like, you're a star opener, he's not a star entry. He's still doing a lot of trade fragging. Drop is the main entry fragger. When you look at them play, he's always involved in that. And then exits on his own, the other side of the map.
Living up to it, man.
Yes, he's still over there getting those exit frags. You're exactly right. So yeah, this is the overall structure, and I think the thing to highlight here, and maybe bring Roque in with, is so Lucaozy's playing a different role, but I want to talk a little bit about the other three, and also Safe, because Safe on this chart, you see, like, he's actually doing quite a lot of entry work, and he's always quite more of like a rifling AWPer. So what is the deal with Safe? Because you want this team to work. You have 2 very good riflers in Insani Lucaozy. I think eventually that will be fine. Like you said, he's got enough firepower. It's probably an upgrade over Brennan, right? Lucaozy will be fine, hopefully. But more on that later. But I want to talk a little bit about Safe, because I think he has been kind of stable in this team. He has the odd map, but for someone who's been on Furia, you kind of want a bit more. And maybe he's just not that player. But what do you think? What do you think about Safe?
I mean, it's also living up to his name. He's just a safe choice for MIBR, I guess, because back in the days when he first like broke to the scene with Pain, he was like a very impactful player. So he was like by far the best player in Pain. At the time they were playing, of course, a lot of online tournaments. They had COVID, and I mean it was a different type of CS, but he was like the guy on the team. Then he moved to Furia and kind of lost it. So we spoke a lot about space back in that day. So Safe doesn't have enough space in Furia. Safe doesn't have enough like opportunities to do the things he was doing in Pain. Just feels weird to say in Pain all the time. But on MIBR, I guess it's kind of the same as Furia. But as you say, they have the space for aggressive players like Insane and Lucaozy. So being an Alper and not kind of used to being not as aggressive as he was in Pain in Furia. So I guess he just changed his game. I don't know if it was something that his desire to be a more passive player and didn't have enough space like he did in Pain, but I guess it's the same as the IGLs. You know, if you look to the other teams, you have players like MTZ. Of course, he's doing great in the last months, but if we go back like 6 months, this year he was not even like someone that the community, like the people watching, would say it's the best choice for Pain. So it kind of goes and comes with the Brazilian Alpers. We don't leave like the best moment ever with talent. We see like Henny, I think he's still the best Brazilian Alper. He changed it from Imperial to Head Canids now. It was a choice to Imperial to change the player, but if you look at statistics or even if you watch games, you can see that Henny has a great impact. But for everyone else, like even Fallen, that he's also like playing good this year, but there's no such a guy as like if you put this guy on your team, he's gonna be like the best Alper possible. So Safe is just a safe choice. He's a great guy outside the server. He plays like he lives up for what he needs to do in the game. So I just don't see a reason of why they would change, why they would go for another Alper, because you don't have like a clear upgrade over Safe. Not even if you consider like players like NKZ, like Fallen, like everyone. So there's no such a thing as a Brazilian Alper to go right now. So I guess you keep Safe because he's reliable. He's a great player. I just don't see him getting like the thing he used to get with Pain, like the space, the multi kills, the guy who was really changing the game. He's not the guy anymore. I can say if just something regarding the game system. I know in Furia we had a lot of this discussion of game system who doesn't fit on Safe. Maybe it's the same with MIBR, but with the team getting more aggressive, I expect him to be even less impactful in a way of like getting spots and getting positions to get the kills.
Do you think that's a thing with Safe, though, or is it a way that the team is actually set up? Because if you go back to Harry's role chart, he has 100% freedom. And how do you measure that, Harry? Is that something that Safe is given? Is that something that he's taking into his own hands? Or how does that compare to what Roque is saying now? Because that it doesn't quite, connect in terms of whether he's the one being held back by the team and their strategies, or if he's choosing to just be more passive now.
That's actually just... It's as basic as AWPers just get 100%, because that's the easiest way to do it in complicated. I'd love to tell you. Yeah, I'd love to tell you that it's like like Roque's wrong. He's an aggressive AWPer, but no, he is a passive AWPer.
So you're waffling with your 100% number.
The 100% thing. I mean, that is designed for riflers. I'm gonna be honest. It's designed for riflers. It's not really about AWPers. AWPers are just their own thing. Next week, I'll take the percentage off for you. How's that sound? I'll just have a like picture of an AWP instead. Happy with that?
It works better. It works better for me.
Yeah, that's great. But yeah,
I think that is one thing with MIBR though. Like that is one thing with MIBR though, is that like when you look at where they need to improve outside of having another rifler come in with Insani, it's like you always do return to the offer because they have such high impact. But then when you go down the line to actually look for a replacement, there's no feasible player that you could actually find that would be able to deliver the consistency to a point where it's worth buying them out. Like, yes, like you said, you have Henny, you have like NFZ, but are these players actually going to provide you a substantial difference over safe that it's worth taking the risk and changing up everything around them? Probably not, but like, where do you go from here in terms of that then, Harry?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I'd remove safe for the same reason. I think he's actually like, he's solid, like he's fine. It's just, we're talking about this team in the context of the RMR, right? And there is a lot of very good South American teams, and it's kind of a self-fulfilling thing of the buyouts are so hard to do that make trades so difficult. So you have a lot of very split out teams. This could also be its own podcast, right? But in terms of how much Brazilian talent is spread out, it's just really difficult to do. And I think I would probably have MIBR as on the edge of, because there's 7 slots, right? 7 slots, and I'd probably say they're the 7th best team in the tournament. So it's definitely not guaranteed, especially with having to integrate Lucaozy to get in. So yeah, it's difficult. It is difficult.
Would you have still said that if they didn't have their EPL run?
What, they're the 7th best team?
Yeah.
It's difficult, right? I should have got a graphic for this, but so I think there's like Imperial down there. I'll just get it up. I'll just get the tournament up. So it's like the type of teams we're talking about are that they're going to need to beat. Okay, so it's Imperial, 9Z, Red Canids, Bestia, Legacy, Wildcard even. These are the kind of teams that are around the 6th to 12th region of this tournament, and these are teams they need to beat. I think they should. I think they've got better players than most of them. I think Imperial without Henny are just not as interesting, and Red Canids with Henny are more interesting, but it's still, I think MIBR on balance. If Lucaozy's anything close to Fluxo form, like they should just steamroll him for firepower reason. 9Z and Bestia are kind of interesting teams, but again, they're not firepower teams, right? So as the tournament goes on, but yeah, and I'll just use this one more graphic because there's a good opportunity to. But so this is Lucaozy's actual full stats in MIBR, and again, 37 maps. It's not loads, but like it's not an insignificant number. This is quite a lot of games against not amazing teams, and he's below average. He's gone down a lot in everything. Only thing he's gone up in is trading. He's doing a bit more trade fragging because, like I said earlier, he's more of a mid-round player now. So I think this is the kind of the crux of MIBR's RMR is Insani will deliver. He always does. That's fine. But if you want to get to the major, I think you need more from Lucaozy. And will they get it? I think that's where I'm a bit more unsure. But yes, if you have to ask me right now, I think they will make the major. I think they should have the talent to do so.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing is right now, there's no such like clear favorites in this RMR. I guess the team who comes here playing better CS is Furia. Of course, Liquid Complexity, they should also get the spots easily, but they are not in the best shape. And if you go down this list, you can have like Pain. Of course, they are maybe the most consistent Brazilian team this year. They always delivering, but everyone else, they are not in the best shape ever. Like Imperial, they did pretty bad in Rio. They also not played great in Thunder Peak. Then you have like 9Z, who since they moved to Europe, they also not doing very good, not being impressive. And then like Head Canids, of course, they played good. They won CBCS, a Brazilian local event, before coming here. You have Kaze and Cru, that are teams that people like got very surprised when they got the qualifications. So I guess if you look at the teams besides the big guys, if you look besides Furia, Liquid, Complexity, and Pain, MIBR, it's kind of in the same as everyone, maybe with M80, I would guess. So it's something that really we should consider. Maybe they will not be in their best version. Lucaozy not gonna be in his best version, but I guess everyone else also it's not shiny right now.
I want to ask, you mentioned some of the results for the other teams, but MIBR's start with Lucaozy hasn't been that great either. Like, they went out last place in ESL Challenger Katowice. They went out 7th, 8th in CBCS Masters. So just with those results coming into this RMR, how does that actually set them up for, success when this has been their start with this new player?
I mean, I'm not saying they are set it up for success, but it's more like nobody is in this RMR, I guess, like I said, you have the clear favorites in Fury, Liquid, Complexity, and Pain. I would also put like M80 up there. I think they should be getting one of these spots, but besides that, you have at least 2 or 3 spots that are completely open. I know, like, if you look at MIBR Legacy game in Katowice, for example, it was a very one-sided game. Like, the Legacy could even like had a bigger like scoreboard if they didn't throw somehow. So it's just everyone is in the same level besides these 5 teams, and there's actually 7 spots. So it's not a matter of am I very like set for success. I just don't think like everyone else is so guaranteed in that they are just in a better shape than MIBR right now. Also, there's the format, like Brazilians facing Brazilians are always like games you can't expect anything because they can change so much. There's emotions, there are more things than just the game itself. And there's the pressure. There's like MIBR didn't make the last 4 majors or the last 3, and this is gonna be the 4th if they don't. So it's so many things in sight right now that it's very hard to predict. If I could say, I would put them in the same basket as teams like Imperial, as teams like 9Z, because these ones, they were in better shape if we look at the first semester, for example. But the second one, nothing impressive.
Yeah, I mean, I think because I think the Pro League run, like I think Nohte brought it up earlier, and that is kind of the big crux of this team. It's without that, we would be talking. It's pretty much a nothing burger. But I think they are really interesting for that reason, is that they had something finally, and then because they were already planning it, then the kind of rug got pulled out beneath them, like as a team. And yeah, these results, like, it's just like, it's best. Yeah, they're losing to Sharks, they're losing to like Monty, and not an amazing team. But yeah, what I want to ask is, maybe for both of you, honestly, if you had like a league table, right, of Brazilian teams, and you played 38 games in a year, I think this team would probably rank higher than in a random RMR event. Like, where would you place them in that? Because I think over longer enough sample size, they should be, right? Yes. And then Challenger is kind of like that, but it's only got Pain and Fury, right? And it's online. Like an actual LAN league, a real league. Because when we talk about European teams, right, like I think you could have a lot of teams there. But teams like G2, who are a bit more inconsistent, I think they'd be exposed in a league format, right? But I think in Brazil, I think MIBR would actually be one of the teams that benefit, because they do have good structure. I think even though Drop is not like a customary IGL, I think the way they play is like a consistent way of playing. And it's just if they can fit Lucaozy into that, because often when we talk about teams that are consistent like this, it's kind of based around like having supportive players. And now that they've kind of swapped Brennan for Lucaozy, it's a different type of structure. So yeah, sorry, very, very long-winded. But what do you think about them? As like, are they a consistent team, inconsistent team? What's the step?
I think based on the way you broke down the roles throughout this episode, it's kind of hard to judge whether they're a consistent team, because when you look at the results pre-EPL, they weren't that good either. Like, you could tell that they definitely had to change something, and that's kind of what inspired that all. It just came at the worst possible time. And then when you have this change coming in and you have this team trying to adjust before an event as big as RMR, I think it's really hard to say that they're going to be a consistent team when the results so far have said the opposite. But with the caliber of players and with how good Insani is, it's also really hard to say that they're going to be an inconsistent team, because he is just a win condition on his own. And if Lucaozy can be even 2/3 of the player he was on Fluxo, then yes, they do have those conditions that they need. It's just really hard to say anything when the sample size is, what was it, like 34, 37 maps? You're still muted.
37, I think it was.
37, yeah.
Something like that.
So it is just hard to judge at that point. But I think this Americas RMR will be very telling. I think when you just break it down to regional Brazilian teams, then yeah, I would definitely put them in like the top 2, top 3 consistently. But I wouldn't put them at the top. Like Pain, I think, would win out over that just because of how they are the pillar of consistency among Brazilian teams. Like they've always managed to make it to these events and show something promising, even with the team getting picked apart. Players not even picked apart, but like they had the issue with not getting the loan sorted after the major earlier this year. So it's just when you have these issues, but you still have Big Zero performing and you have the team making it back, I think that's telling that is consistency for me. Whereas MIBR haven't really, like, there's not anything that would allow me to say that they're going to be consistent over a Pain.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the year shows they are not consistent, because if you look back at the first semester, they won Melbourne. So, of course, not the biggest tournament ever, but it's not like Brazilian teams are winning the biggest tournament. So if we look just for Brazilian teams, it's an important result. They won in Melbourne. They did great. Like, okay, maybe now it's time. Now we're going to see MIBR actually being consistent, or at least being there in the best tournaments. Then they came back. I think they played Bad Bundasha and didn't get much of a great moment there. Then they came back to Brazil and had a lot of bad results online. Then it's all when it started, like when all the talks behind doing changes again started, because they came to Brazil. They lost. I think they lost to Kaze. Like they lost to a lot of lower level teams. So all the discussions started again. So they could enjoy like being the next big thing for Brazil for a month. They win in Melbourne, they come back, and they had a lot of bad results online. So they definitely not consistent. If we, like, I don't know, maybe in 3 years we look back and we saw a top 4 in the Pro League and a trophy in Melbourne, we would think it was like a great year, or MIBR did great. Besides if you compare with the other Brazilian teams. But it's for sure not a consistent team. Like it's basically a team that can be top 4 in the Pro League, and 2 weeks after that losing some random online matches in Brazil, or losing to on CBCS, for example, losing to Bestia in a LAN environment in Brazil.
Yeah, I think I more mean, like, I think they're a high floor team, right? I think they don't have a weak link. I think all their players are pretty good. And Insani is so consistently good that I just think as a floor, that in theory, they should be able to compete at like a reasonable level. I think that's more what I mean than like consistency at these tough events, because most of the events they play they're not favorites at all, right? And I mean, that's why it's always fun to have RMRs, and I will miss RMRs because it is such a brutal test of a team like this. Like, they're against Crew first game, and they should win that, but the pressure's on them. They're favorites. They're not used to being favorites. Most events they're underdogs. So, anything can happen. I think it's going to be an exciting watch for sure.
We've talked about the RMR and then the players. We've talked about the roles a little bit. The problem is this team only just made a change, so we can't even go through some HLTV threads to fix MIBR, right? It's too early. We can't do it yet. Maybe after the major. But I do have one thing that we could do. If you go back to your charts, Harry, and we talked about, how exit, he's a bit of a bitter. He, gets those exit kills. We have safe, plays safe, gets those late kills, We have Insani, he plays Insani. Now the problem here is, okay, Lucaozy and Drop's names do not correspond to how they play and what their roles are. So now we need to make new names for these players for their roles on MIBR. And Harry, you're going to be first up to name Lucaozy.
Can I go Drop? Because I think Drop actually...
Go Drop.
If I'm being harsh, if we're going to be harsh, okay, Drop's name does fit it because he's dropping the ball as an Ingham leader.
Dang, boy.
Explain.
No, I mean, I just, they're losing to Bestia, man. Come on, he's got to be sacked now. No, I mean, it's a real one. A real one for Lucaozy is kind of hard. Because I think it's really hard because it's just such an unknown. Like, just something to do with being unknown, I reckon. Because he's such an... It's so hard to predict what he's going to be like in this team in like 3 months. Because they've bought him out. He's going to be here for a while. So I'm trying to think of a good word for unknown, but I'm not a thesaurus. So someone help me.
He's a stats guy. He's a stats guy. Assign him a number.
A number?
Give him a number.
50%. 50% chance or anything. I've got no idea. Like it's like a pollsters for the American prediction. It's 50-50. It's too close to call. It's your job to call it. Do better, please. Anyway, that's a different thing.
Okay, well, we're going to have the RMR coming up. We've talked a lot about this team and just how we're going to potentially see them play with Lucaozy and whether they're able to actually turn this around. Before we head out, I know that you're both in China, so I wanted to leave you guys a chance for any parting words about how you think the RMR is going to go, or just in general, anything you want to say before we end the show.
Just a thank you to Roque for coming on. I think it's really interesting to know the actual context behind this scene because from the outside it's mental. So it's a fun job you've got trying to piece it all together. So yeah, just thanks for coming on. That's all I've got to say.
Thanks for the invitation, guys. Like it's always cool to give some extra, not a lot of in this case because like I said, sometimes I feel like MIBR just do changes because they need to like give an answer or like change the environment. I guess that's the case with Lucaozy. You're bringing in a star player and bringing in a guy who like can drop the numbers, can be the guy they need. But if you look at the roles, doesn't make much sense. But I'm pretty confident, and we can ask Nak and Beat here to understand a little bit more of this move and these answers. You're gonna get them. Dust2.com.br
and HLTV. Definitely.